Hello there, darlings. Today I thought we will talk about the EPF. What is the EPF? What does it consist of? What is the schedule in the EPF? How long does it take? What are the courses you're supposed to do? And what is actually the whole point of it? And because you see, in the past, people have often described the EPF as the boot camp for the Sea Org, which is very accurate. But I thought today let's do a little deep dive and really have a look what is the EPF. As some of you may know, the Sea Org and the EPF is a paramilitary organization, which means it models itself a little bit on the military, on the Navy. This has simply to do with the fact that Hubbard was himself in the Navy, and therefore he wanted to create his own little Navy, become his own little commodore of his organization. And so he created this Sea Org. And therefore, in the EPF, you do learn about these sort of things. So first things first, when you join the EPF, you get divided into males and females, and you have separate dormitory, even if you come in and you join as a couple. So you're married and then you still be separated. Then the next thing that will happen is that all things that sort of make you stand out from the crowd, so to speak, will be removed. What I mean by that is any jewelries that you have, any makeup that you have, any special clothes, you don't wear that. You wear simply your uniform, and everything else you're not allowed to wear, right? Very similar also to military. So let's talk a little bit about the schedule. I can't recall exactly the time when we did what, but in the morning we would wake up and there would be a morning muster. Then after the muster we would have breakfast. And after the breakfast, we would have another muster. And the muster is basically you get all together in your groups within the EPF, and you make sure that everybody is present and accounted for, to make sure that nobody has run away, escaped, or anything like that. And mustered, you also have that after you finish the EPF in the Sea Org. Very, very important. And then after the breakfast master, then usually there would be a project being given out. A project would be written on a sheet of paper, as I recall. It was a small sheet of paper like this, and it would say on the top, what is the project? Let's say the project is cleaning a room. And then it will tell you, well, what are the materials that you need? Where do you find these materials? And where is this room, in this case, where you need to go and clean? And who's the person who wrote this project to do, this mission to do, right? And then you do that. Once you've done that, you then go to your EPF IC. The IC is the in charge, and then they will inspect to make sure you've done everything correctly, and then that would be a done project. It would be finished, and then that would count as one of the statistics for the EPF IC. Now, throughout the day, you have 5 hours allocated for study, and usually, at least during my time, it was always done on one go. What I mean by that, it wasn't done like in the morning you had 2 hours and then in the afternoon you had 3 hours. It was usually 5 hours one go in the afternoon, and in the morning and the evening is when we would work. We would then go to bed in the evening, I believe, like 10:30, 11 o'clock. In any case, I do remember we were getting enough sleep. It was always 8 hours of sleep. That was very important because we had to do 5 hours of study every day. And talking of study, let's have a look at the courses that we had. There were 6 courses, and the first course is actually the only course that you can do outside of the Sea Org. And the other courses you can only do exclusively in the Sea Org, because they have what is known as FOs, flag orders, which are written orders, written policies by Hubbard specifically for the Sea Org. In Scientology, you have different kind of writings from Hubbard that are talking about the technical training, talking about administrative things, maybe writing which is specifically for a division of the org board, or maybe you have special policies only for executives that the normal Scientologists are not allowed to see. Really, it's only for executives or only for staff, or again, only for SEAL members. And they're all written differently in different ink. So you have one that is written red ink on white paper, green ink on white paper. FOs, for example, as I mentioned, they are written black ink on white paper. You have blue ink on blue paper, blue ink on white paper, and so on and so forth. And therefore, only SEAL members are allowed to do these courses, or rather EPFers and then Sea Org members, of course. And the first course that you do, which is, as I mentioned, a course that you can do in Scientology, is called BSM, the Basic Study Manual. Basic because there are more advanced study manuals. And this course is actually made for children. I do remember having done this as a child back in Switzerland, when I lived in Switzerland. And this is there to make sure that you have your very basic tools of how to study, how to look up words. What does it mean if you are if you don't have mass, if you're reading about a ship but you have no ship in front of you? What can you do to make it more realistic for you, and so on and so forth? And naturally, that is the only way of study, and everybody else who doesn't use that doesn't actually understand what they're doing, and they're going to fail naturally. So that's what you have to do. You have to learn how to study properly. Now, you might think, well, hang on, if you're going to join the Sea Org, surely you would have done this course before already. Surely you would have been a Scientologist for many years before. Well, as a matter of fact, not necessarily. In my case, sure, that was the case. And in many cases, that is, in fact, how it is. But when I was in EPF, I'll give you one little story. When I was in EPF, there were two brothers, I think they were twins, they were recruited, and they were Buddhist monks. I mean, they were literally Buddhist monks, and they were recruited. And every morning they would sit in the room, in the male birthing room, and they would meditate, because that is their belief, right? And we all sort of looked at each other like, what are these people doing here, you know? Because you're not allowed to really practice other religious beliefs certainly not in the Sea Org. In Scientology, it is frowned upon. When you first start, they're not going to say anything really, but after a while, they will tell you, well, why are you doing this? Isn't Scientology good enough? I mean, what you're doing here, this is other fish you're frying, doing this other religious ceremonies and so on and so forth. In any case, we had these two twins who were Buddhist monks, and they would do their ceremonies, and they would be very Buddhistic in their way of doing things, and they only lasted for a few weeks, and then after that they left because they realized, well, this isn't exactly what they wanted. So, and this is not the only example. There were many examples of people just pretty much picked up off the street. I mean, maybe they came, did one course, and then they were sold on go and do the Sea Org. And these tend to be foreigners. These tend to be people who were foreigners, who were not from the country and didn't speak the language all that well. I was in the EPF in UK. I was then working at St. Hill in East Grinstead at the time. So we had lots of people from different countries who didn't really speak the language properly. So I'm not sure what they were told, what is the Sea Org. Maybe they were simply told, this is the best way to start working in a different country. I'm not sure. In any case, this happened, and therefore the basic study manual was part of the courses that you needed to do. So that is the first course. Then the second course was the Sea Org Introduction to Scientology Ethics. Now, there is already a book called Introduction to Scientology Ethics that exists, and you do read some references from here in this Sea Org version of it, but there are also, as I mentioned, FOs specifically for the Sea Org, where they tell you what is an appropriate kind of punishment, what is ethics in the Sea Org, in this sort of group, and so on and so forth. The second course is called the Basic Sea Org Member Hat. A hat being your post, your job. This comes from the different jobs that there are in the normal world. Like when you are a policeman, you have a certain hat. When you are a fireman, you have a certain hat. When you're a chef, then you have a certain hat. So the hat represents what is the job, right? So your hat is basically your job. And as a Sea Org member, your hat is being a Sea Org member, as well as then having a specific function within the Sea Org, right? And here you learn what it means to be a Sea Org member. You have the basic training of being a Sea Org member, the code of a Sea Org member, and policies, things like that. Then the next course is the Sea Org Etiquette course. as the name already implies, it teaches you etiquette, how to behave on a ship specifically in certain situations, which was interesting to read, but not really applicable because we were not on a ship anymore, we were on land. And I believe in this course, although I'm not sure if it was this course or a different course, we learned about the different parts of the ship. We had to learn at what time you do this with the ship, when do you put up the sail, when you bring down the sail, and completely useless information for the Sea Org at that time, because of course we were on land, so we had nothing to do with any ships at all. Then the next course is the personal grooming course. This is where you learn how to take care of your appearance, basically, of the uniform, I believe was in there, all the different uniforms you had. You learned how to clean your uniform properly, how to sew on a button, how to polish your shoes. And the only part that I can remember that distinctly, because I thought it was so weird, is that the aforementioned, you're not allowed to use the brand Kiwi. There's a brand called Kiwi for shoe polish, and it specifically said do not use this brand. Now, it didn't say why. It didn't say, well, it has this chemical in it, which, after a while it damages the leather or anything like that. It didn't say anything like that. It just simply said don't use it. And I have my speculation that maybe Hubbard met somebody who founded it, or maybe worked there and they just slighted him. And so Hubbard decided, okay, that's it. We're not going to be buying any of their products. I have no clue, but I wouldn't be surprised if it were something petty as that, because Hubbard was quite a petty person. And the last course was the basic cleaning course. And, well, it is what it says. You learn how to clean properly, how to clean a window properly, with no chemicals, only water. Or maybe a little bit of vinegar if it was particularly dirty. And how to dust properly, how to hoover, or the whole procedure. How do you clean a room? Like, where do you start? Where do you end? And so on and so forth. And in this course, you also learn a favorite activity of all Sea Org members, I'm sure, the white glove inspection. So this is literally, you have to clean a room, and then if it says, okay, this is a white glove inspection, cleaning, it means that an officer would come, put on a white glove. If they didn't have a white glove, I think they were allowed to use like a white cloth, some sort of white cloth or something. I think I don't recall anymore if it says you can replace the white glove with a white cloth. In any case, I do recall having seen people with a cloth rather than a glove. In any case, you go with this, whatever it is, around, and you go over different surfaces, you go behind things, you go under the bed, wherever, and you have to, and in the end, there has to be no dirt or dust on there. And if there is, then that is a flunk. So you have to redo it again, you have to clean again, and then when you think you're ready, you have to ask for the same officer again to come and inspect your berthing or inspect the room or whatever it is. And this white glove inspection we did regularly. We had to do this once a week for our berthing, so where we lived on a Saturday, and also for the offices and wherever we worked, we had to do that also usually once a week, I believe on Thursday evening, because in Scientology the week ends on Thursday 2 p.m. for whatever reason, and I believe we had to clean it on Thursday evening, or perhaps it was Friday. I'm not entirely sure. Now, in my case, because I was working as a chef, that wasn't the case. I didn't have to do white gloves. That we did have to do once a white glove, but that was a very special circumstance at that time. All right, so these are the courses that we had to do on the EPF. And as I recall, each course had a duration time of somewhere between 3 and 6 days, something like that, which means all in all, you would finish the course between 3 and 5 weeks. That was sort of the expected time. I myself took much longer. I took 2 months for sure. Maybe it could have even been 3 months. I was quite a long time on the EPF. Now, another rather important aspect of the EPF is confronting mess. MEST. What is MEST? MEST stands for Matter, Energy, Space and Time, which sounds very fancy, but it's basically the physical universe. So anything physical you can actually touch. That is mess. And in the EPF, you need to learn to confront mess. So you get told you need to go and clean that. You need to paint that wall. You need to tidy that up. You need to dig that trench. And it is basically there to make you be able to confront more and more mess, be able to do more and more work without being annoyed by it, without thinking, oh God, now I have to do that as well, or be overwhelmed by it. You get purposely overwhelmed on the EPF. You're being given work that is actually quite difficult for you maybe to do, work that you have never done before in your life, and you're simply expected to do it and to make it go right. And that can be quite grueling. It can be also very unpleasant and disgusting work. I remember one time when we had, it was during the summer, and during the summer there was a special event called the Major Voyager event or something like that, and it went on for some weeks. It was not just one event, it was several events, 3 or 4 events, and during that time I was in the EPF, and the skip was not paid for. The skip is where you throw away all the garbage and all the rubbish, and during that time they were doing a barbecue for all the public. And so of course all the rubbish that was left, so all the leftover food, was just left on a huge pile because the skip was not paid for. You know, that huge container where you would throw all your bin bags in there, and then it would be picked up and gotten rid of. That wasn't paid for, so there was nothing there. It was just all thrown on the ground in the heating, in the very hot sun. I know, it's unbelievable. England doesn't even have a hot sun, but it was really quite hot in that summer. And so by the time we actually had a skit, it was me and 2 other EPFers. We had to go and throw all the bin bags into the skit. And let me tell you, that was probably the most disgusting thing I ever had to do. It was full of maggots. The bin bags, the thin black plastic lining was already disintegrating. I mean, I picked it up, it ripped, and all the stuff, it was quite something. In the end, it was just me and the other person, because the third person, they had to throw up because it was just too much for them. But in the end, us 2, we had to do that. So that is the sort of thing you also do on the EPF. It's not just painting a wall or doing some cleaning. It can be quite gruesome and unpleasant work, but the whole point of it is to confront, to do as much things as possible that you maybe don't want to do, don't want to confront, so that you can do that. And then later on, when you are a valuable member of the Sea organization, you can pick up any job without any flinching, without any hesitation, and just get on with it. Okay, and now within the EPF, it wasn't just one group, it wasn't just one unit. When you had the EPF, you had within it teams. You had Team A, Team B, Team C, Team D. In theory, they wouldn't have had a limit on letters because it was just dependent on how many EPFs there were. And the group would consist of between 3 and maybe 6 people. That was for each team. And the idea behind that was to learn, yes, we are as a whole one team, the EPF, but we are also working within the team in a smaller team, right? And then we had, and all the members for each team in the team was an EPFer, and then one of them was always the team IC. So the person in charge of the team, who also was an EPFer, and it would change every week. Every week it would change. So I would have been in Team A, and then maybe Bob, he was then the Team IC, to learn to be in charge, to be responsible, to give orders, to make sure that the project that we were given were also done properly, and so on and so forth. And then the following week, maybe I would be then in charge of the team to also learn these sort of things. And we did different drills and different games and things like that within the EPF to learn to work as a team. For example, we would have to run around the building, and then we had the different teams, and then that team that finished first, well, they won. You know, they didn't win anything, but they just won, right? Or we would have what I believe is called close order drilling, which is when you stand next to each other, not touching, with your hands on the sides, and then the EPFIC would say right face, and then you have to turn sharply right, left face, and then you turn left, about face, and then you turn you basically turn around, and you have to do it in a very snappy and quick way. And then obviously, as this happens, people might hesitate, they turn wrongly, and then that's a flunk, and then that person falls out, and then it would just reduce until there's only one person left, and then that person won, right? Things like that we did. Or we did what is known as Chinese school. And apparently this is how in China back in the day it was taught in schools, different rules and all of that. And you basically had a blackboard where you had something written on there, and then the cantina with a stick would point to it, to point to the first part and read it out loud, and then the whole EPF would have to shout it back at the person, and then do the next bit and shout again. And then every time that you go through it, he will pick up a little bit more of it. In the end, he will say the whole thing at once, and then you have to shout the whole thing at once. And that is a method of learning it off by heart. I do not recall what the different Chinese schools things that we did were, except for one, and that is the definition of a team. A team has a tendency to know what the other team members are doing and thinking, and coordinate thereby and therewith, and that is the definition of a team. It is people who cooperate one with another and push forward a common purpose, and they normally get along great. LRH. Because this definition of a team was repeated so many times. Even when I was a cadet, we did the team Chinese school. And last, I would like to talk about the different versions of the EPF. Now, as I understand it, they added another version of the EPF now to replace the RPF, apparently. But back when I was a Sea Org member, which was between 2008 and 2012, and I did my EPF in 2008, we had the regular EPF, as I've described it, and then you had an EPF, I believe it's called either Category A or Category B, and this was an EPF for somebody who had already done the EPF and has already been working as a Sea Org member, but then after some time, maybe they made after some months, after some years, they will have made mistakes, they will have annoyed certain people or whatever, and it was not as severe so as to send them to the RPF. However, they sent them back to the EPF. And as I remember, they basically had to go through all the courses again, do all the courses, or maybe they only had to do the exam of the courses. And then whatever exam wasn't passed, they would have to repeat the course completely. And additionally to that, they had a program specifically designed for them to address whatever problems that they were giving to their seniors or on their post, basically. So there were these two kinds of EPF. So, my little darlings, I do hope you found this rather interesting, possibly even entertaining, and hopefully educational. If you have any questions, if you have some experience of your own that you would like to share with the class, then please put it down in the comment section. I would really appreciate that. Also for other people to be able to read about that. Please consider liking this video if in fact you liked it, and subscribing to my channel. And other than that, I wish you a most marvelous day. Goodbye.